Hello, beautiful people of Wisconsin. This is Andy in front of the UWM Milwaukee building. Let's talk about education reform, something Republicans don't traditionally run on. So my view is this. First, I want to see a Lex Pretoria de Minoribus. I am not Roman, and I was not alive at the time, so I don't know how to pronounce that. It's something I did and studied and found at some point, but basically the idea would be that when young people would go into some sort of debt or went into a situation where they would be getting debt, that they would have a parent involved with the process. It would be somebody trusted. It would be done in a secure setting. I'm a believer that a lot of young people on college campuses are getting hit with credit cards when they walk in the building. Credit cards and getting shoved at student loans, and they don't understand the process properly, okay? We need to go back to educating people properly. We would go back to a system which we had in the past, which we moved away from, in which banks are the ones who give out the loans to go to college. So what this would do is it would naturally restrict somewhat who's going to college. And that would mean prices would naturally come down in response to the more restrictive element of what college is, right? And so they can't charge as much or can't do as much to the people because there's not as many people coming in, so they can't get away with as much, okay? And there's more, I guess, freedom in that regard. Now the banks, I worked at a bank at one point. Banks are struggling. People are not coming in too much. This will give banks another opportunity where people can come into the banks. In the bank, they will be more legally protected. The people are going to be, because of regulation, they're going to have to go through the process properly. They're going to have to explain to the parent and the child and everybody involved about what the loan details are, what's to be expected, how to pay off the loan. So none of this nonsense when you can't, right? If they don't do that, what this law would do is, if I do get the chance to be governor, would allow them to be able to be more able to sue these institutions for the abuse, right? So like an abusive kind of student loan, an abusive kind of debt that is unfairly applied, which is what the Roman law believed in. Now, talking about reforming education, I'm a believer that if we talk about the woke and all this other kind of left-wing stuff, let's be clear. If you're in the nursing program and before you can do nursing, you have to do generals, that's where the woke is. So I am actually exploring the idea and want to push the idea of getting rid of general education, okay? Because let's be clear, when you're going to college, you don't need a new English, which is going to teach you about liberalism and reading this book and do that prompt, right? You don't need to take another history. A communications class, really? More basic math? At this point, our high schools need to step up and get it done and teach up to high school level. Colleges should not be doing that. And so what a lot of generals are, it's just basic classes. It inflates the cost of college. If you cut out general education, what do we get instead? We get faster associates, faster bachelors, faster masters. People go to college and they're studying their program right away. And let me be clear, if you're in a nursing program, they're not going to be telling you about how to believe in politics. What they will tell you is if you're in generals and in a general class, well, you should start thinking this way. Well, you should do a paper on this. Well, we need to talk about this, the impact on society about this. That's where the left-leaning, the indoctrination, the liberalism being shoved into kids is. I went to college, I know about this, okay? I can address this directly. If you want to see education, public education reform to a point where kids aren't going there and being brainwashed. I had a girl I went to church growing up with. She went to college and they completely brainwashed her. They told her her parents hate her, God hates her, all of the above, and it breaks my heart. Those parents love their daughter. Those parents want their daughter to have children. Those parents want their daughter to be happy. And it breaks my heart to see somebody so involved in ideology. And so I'm a believer, again, that you shorten the pathway to college. That means that there's going to be better prices overall for the students. I'm a believer that you allow protection so students are more able to sue and families are more able to deal with bad debtors and abusive situations overall. I'm a believer that general education should go away, and that would basically half the cost of college for most people, honestly. And so people can look at college as a good deal again. Oh, I can go to college for $20,000 instead of $40,000? That's a good deal. That's a great deal. And then people can really think, I'm going to get a good future. I'm going to get a really good deal out of this. So that's my view for education. I think it desperately needs to be educated. I think it desperately needs to be educated in a different way. It needs to be reformed in a different way. And I'm just a goofy guy here. So I have a big belief that, again, went to school. I know directly what's happening here. And a lot of these campuses, these general classes definitely are pushing people to be more liberal, pushing people to hate their families, to hate their culture, to hate every element around them. And I don't want hate being taught in colleges. I don't want hate being taught in high schools. But I think this is a good first step towards a better education system in Wisconsin. And a cheaper one, and a one in which it's more fair, a one in which, it's a safer process to get loans, and one where people aren't going to be complaining about, predatory loans. And so that's my thoughts. Thanks for joining Andy at the UWM here in Milwaukee. And regardless of what school you're at, this happens everywhere, and we need to just fix our education badly. And it'll set us apart from every other state. I truly believe that. Thank you. Bye-bye.